in the Torah, the written law, there are many allusions. It alludes to certain concepts or certain realities. And the month that we're just began already, today's the 7th day of the month. We're in the month of Elul. Elul, initially, the months of the year are referred to by the number. For instance, Pesach is known as Chodesh HaRishon, the first month. Why is it called the first month? Because when did the redemption of Egypt take place and the trek to Sinai? We became God's subjects. We are no longer Pharaoh's subjects, we became God's subjects, we took us out of Egypt. Therefore, that's the beginning. Therefore, the month of Nisan is referred to as the first month. Rosh Hashanah is the month of Tishrei. That's not this month, that's next month. If you count from Nisan, Rosh Hashanah is the 7th month. It's called Chodesh HaShvi, the 7th month. So initially, all the months, all the various holidays, when they're identified, when they fall out, it's by the number. Either it's in the first month, the 7th month, Shavuos is in the 3rd month. It's Chodesh HaShlishi. Because one was the Torah given at Sinai, was given at Sivan, the beginning of the month of Sivan, which is referred to as the 3rd month. We went into the Babylonian exile. The Navi, the prophet says, when you return from Babylon back to rebuild the second temple, the months will no longer be referred to as by number, as the 1st, the 7th, or the 3rd, whatever it may be, but they'll be referred by name. Because when we're in Babylon, during that exile period, we were exposed to many, many different dominating, ruling factions. The main one were the Babylonians, but there were many, there was a jargon, language, there was a jargon. We spoke Babylonian, but there was also Persian intermingled in there. The months that we refer to are not Jewish words. It's in the Babylonian or jargon of Persian Babylon. So Nisan, Iyar, Tish, Sivan, all these months that we refer to, that's a number. Says when you come back, you're no longer referred to by number, but by name. Each month has a name. Now, names are very interesting. A table is an English word. A table, when you say the word table, you immediately visualize a table. What's a table? It has a horizontal slab of something on top, and it has legs that hold it up. That's a table. And it has a capacity to contain. You say chair, a chair also. It has a seat, sometimes it has a back, it doesn't have a back. It's a location for a person to sit on. But what does table mean? The way we visualize it is because innately that is the meaning of the word table. Well, no, they had to identify that word, that product as a table, they chose the word table. So we know now, when say table means that. It's like if I would call a cat a dog, rather than a dog a cat. So you'd say, well, that's what it's called. But it used to be called a cat, not a dog. But if that's what society calls it, so we'd say dog, you mean cat today, it doesn't mean dog anymore. So there's nothing innate in the name. But when it comes to many things in life, events are not just random. We were in Babylon, it wasn't random. That we were vulnerable, they were more powerful than us. And that's why the temple was basically destroyed and went to exile. No, there were reasons. And the prophet came and told us that because you people, you misbehaved and you failed on many levels, you're no longer worthy to remain in the land, you're going to be exiled from the land. And he told us initially, you're going to be exiled for 70 years, and after 70 years, you're coming back, which we did. We came back during the reign of Achashverosh, which was the Persian reign, towards the end of that. Achashverosh's wife, you read the Megillah of Purim, her name was Vashti. Vashti was the last surviving relative of the Babylonian emperor who destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. It was Nebuchadnezzar's granddaughter. and she was killed because she defied her husband, and she was replaced with Esther, who was a Jewess, which he wasn't aware of at the time. During his reign, we came back. Towards the end of his reign, we came back. By then, the months, the Jews referred to the months by name, no longer by number. So the prophet says that the months will be referred by name. Those names, are they just pick out of the hat? Or no, those names, each name has relevance. There's something innate in that name. So we see clearly that the names themselves have something innate in them, although the basis is Persian, Babylonian, whatever it may be. For instance, give you an example. The month of Nisan is when we were redeemed from Egypt. What does the word Nes mean? Nes means miracle. Isn't it a little unusual? It happens to be, it's a Persian reference to this month. And all the greatest miracles in the history of existence came about and culminated in this month. The plague of the killing of the firstborn was during this month. Because right after that, we were driven out of Egypt. And we went out, not as fugitives, went out as victors. And we went out with wealth, which was one kind of wealth, Nisan. Now, the month of Elul, which is the month we're right now, is an acronym. It's an acronym for something which King Solomon says in Song of Songs, Shir HaShirim. He says, we're referred to as Dodi. The Song of Songs is written almost like a love story between a person and the one who he loves. The one who loves is God, the beloved is of the Jewish people, and how God expresses his love for us, what we mean to him, and what he should mean to us. And the word Dodi means beloved. The word Elul is a 4-letter word. That's a Persian or Babylonian reference to this month. It's an acronym, the Aleph, Ani L'Dodi, V'Dodi Li. The 4 words. Aleph is Ani, I, to my beloved, L'Dodi, V'Dodi Li. When I show my love to my beloved, then my beloved, he responds and shows his love for me. Meaning it's a two-sided relationship. If you take the initiative and you see God as your beloved, then he values you as you're his beloved. We find the Talmud tells us sometimes the Jewish people are referred to God's children, bonim. You're God's children. But other times, we're referred to as avodim, God's subjects. So the Talmud tells us, when we do the will of God, then we're referred to as his children. When we don't do his will, we're subjects. A child has another connotation than the subject. Subject is very formal, very limited in terms of the relationship. Arm's length, at least. A son, there's a love, there's a warmth, there's an intimacy, there's a closeness, whole different connotation. We're born, when we refer to as his children, we do the right thing. That's really like, when we see God as our beloved, we want to do his will. When you want to do his will, God will go to the ends of existence for us, to provide whatever we need. Because the value of existence is to do his will. So the value of existence is to do his will, he'll provide whatever is needed. I always say, we find that two types of tzaddikim, in terms of they're both equally as devout and righteous. You have tzaddik v'tovlo. You have a tzaddik, his life doesn't have a bad day in his life. Health, wealth, intelligence, charisma, he has everything. You have another tzaddik, viralo, things not one day goes right. Difficulties, can't make ends meet. He's a disliked person. He's a pariah in society. They're both tzaddikim. They both have equal standing, spiritually speaking. Why is one treated 5-star and the other was treated like sub-zero? Why does God write the script differently for each one? The answer is that each person has a purpose in existence. Each of us has a purpose. Each of us has a soul, and that soul has to be perfected. To perfect that soul, you have to have certain challenges. And if you meet those challenges, whatever they may be, then you perfect that soul, you perfect yourself. And based on that level of perfection, you have a relation with God. Now, who understands the makeup of that? So what that soul needs to perfect it? Only God knows. We have no idea. But whatever is needed, God will provide the challenges to bring about that end result. So let's say you need to be a person who's an influencer, to be a role model for society. You have to have superior intelligence because you have to have a knowledge base. And you can't be distracted with material needs. See what God does? He gives you the charisma, gives you the intelligence, gives you the health, gives you the drive, gives you the stamina to be able to achieve whatever you have to achieve. Now that you've achieved that, now you go out and do God's thing, to be the influencer, to be the role model, because that is what your soul needs to perfect it, to ultimately have that relation with God. The other person, the makeup of his soul, that's what his soul doesn't need that. His soul has to meet different kinds of challenges. His soul has to meet, despite being denied, that person has to sacrifice for the sake of God. It's a continuous Kiddush Hashem. It's like a person giving his life for God. There's nothing more precious than your life. And despite that, you give your life. A person that's so despised, denied social relationships because he's an observant Jew. And despite that, he toes the line. That makes him met the grade. But why? His soul needs a different level of perfection. The two types of rough to cut those diamonds. If you understand the potential of that rough, the diamond cutter, the expert diamond cutter, he cuts it differently. Why don't you cut them all the same? Because each diamond has its unique characteristic and has to be cut differently to bring about its perfect color, shape, and everything else that goes along with it. And only God knows how to cut that diamond. And he gives a person every challenge in his life to be able to, the end result, that if you meet the challenges, that diamond is one of a kind of a diamond. Whether the tzaddik had a difficult life or he had an exceptional life. So the wealth, the charisma, the intelligence, whatever he has, all the accolades have nothing to reward. That's the means to be able to succeed in your mission. It's like a person works for, years ago, there was somebody who worked for the Rothschild Bank. He was a genius. He was part of the Yad Avram many years ago. He passed away. And he told me he wasn't observant at the time. Every night, he would stay in a hotel. It could have been $5,000, $10,000 a night. Throughout the world, he traveled to Europe, different countries, eat in the best restaurants because he'd take clients out. He had a Rolls Royce taking him around because he was working for the Rothschild family. Told me after a while he was sick of it. He couldn't take it. You know, it wasn't him. He had no relevance to it. But that was his job. Because that was his job. He had to play the role of working for Rothschild. He had to display the Rothschild's power, prestige, and everything else. But all that he was given, that had nothing to do with a salary. His salary was for what he accomplished. These added perks, these perks were not for him. Because that was his mission. That was his job. That was his responsibility. Identically, each of us have our mission cut out for us. But only God knows what that mission is. It's to do his will, whatever that may be. It's all based on the Torah, but the predicament we find ourselves in, despite the predicament, we have to meet those challenges. Because God chose that predicament. It's not random. Therefore, if we all find ourselves there, we have the ability to achieve it. And if we don't achieve it, it's considered a failing. The Rambam rules based on Gemara says, "B'mokshe bal Teshuvah omdim," where a Baal Teshuvah stands, afilu tzaddikim b'rein omdim. A person becomes a Baal Teshuvah, and he succeeds. His level surpasses a person who's been a tzaddik all his life. So when Rambam explains, others explain it, a person who initially was conditioned in the negative. And now he comes to a certain level of realization. After you've been conditioned negative, even though you may understand something, to change directions is very difficult. And even if you walk in the new path, you have all your skeletons in the closet, whispering in your ear, remind you of what was at one time, which was very sensual and very attractive. So you always have to fight your demons for the rest of your life. The baal Teshuvah has to fight his demons continuously. So the struggle for baal Teshuvah is much more difficult than a person's been a tzaddik all his life. Tzaddik all his life, he made initially the right choice, so he naturally gravitates towards spirituality. The other person is, although he's maintained his spirituality, but he's holding on for life. And if you're holding on for life for the sake of God, that's the ultimate level. Therefore, baal Teshuvah, if he remains the baal Teshuvah, he's the penitent, and he remains that, despite all the forces trying to tear him away from that, his level of accomplishment is greater than the accomplishments of a tzaddik. That's the understanding that where baal Teshuvah stand, even a person who's a tzaddik all his life does not stand at that level. Every day in the Amidah, the second blessing of supplication, of requests, we ask God to bring us back. It's in the plural. Bring us back to your Torah. Bring us close to our King, to your service. We pray it every day, 3 times a day, this blessing. We say it in the plural. Not bring me back. Bring us back. Why is it in the plural? Because we're praying for everybody. Every Jew, if he could be at a better place where he is, and he's not because he's fallen short of that, we're praying to God that he should bring us back. Every one of us. Not only the tzaddik because he wants to be a great tzaddik. The person who has no relevance to that, God should bring him back. So when you pray it with a true understanding of what you're praying, there's simultaneously, it's interesting to be qualified to be a chazan on Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. It's not simple. It's not enough just to know the melody or the text. It's based on the mindset. And it's ruled in the Code of Laws, in the Ramah, the glasses on the Shulchan Aruch, on the Code of Laws, that the chazan on Rosh Hashanah and Kippur should be minimally 30 years old. Because 30 you have a degree of maturity. You should be a married man and should have children. Why? Because a person's 30, he's already reached a level of maturity. Married, he has a level of responsibility as a wife. And if he has children, he knows what to pray for. Because whatever is closest to home, that's what you pray best for. So if you have all these components, and of course you have the voice, which is pleasant, and you know the text, this is the first choice. And also being preferably a Talmud Chacham, being a Torah scholar. Why? Because then he has clout. God sees this person in a very positive vein. He's an appropriate representative of the community. 5-star rating, plus he has what it takes to bring it about. That's what it should be. So when he prays for others, he has to be in a predicament where he needs it personally. So the more you appreciate and understand what you're praying for, and you pray for others are beneficiaries of your mindset, of your emotional state. Therefore, we pray every day, bring us back to your Torah. Let's say a person feels, something, I'm okay where I am. I'm a religious Jew. I'm a Talmud Chacham. I do things right. I'm praying for my brother. It's not really enough. If you feel that you've fallen short yourself, and you pray for yourself, and you feel it for yourself, then you feel different. It's not, I'll pray for others. No, you got to pray for yourself. When you pray for yourself and you feel the need to pray for yourself, and you understand what it means to be behind the 8 ball and not be where you should be, then you have a capacity to feel where other people are not. Therefore, you pray even better for them. It's a different level of supplication. went to the Lubavitcher rabbi, and he says, and Lubavitcher Rebbe was he was a Torah giant. Plus, he had insight, he had certain senses of certain things, and the person feels a little uncomfortable here. The Rebbe is looking at him like an X-ray machine. So the Rebbe, he says to the Rebbe, he says, I'm a baal tshuva, but I'm much better than that. I'm beyond being a baal tshuva. So Rebbe says, what's wrong being a baal tshuva? I wish I was a baal tshuva. I wish I'd make these corrections. There's nothing to be ashamed of being a baal tshuva. Everybody, but one of us should be in the mode, in the mindset that we have what to correct. And if you see yourself, you have what to correct, and you're not where you should be. You pray for hard. A person's in the insurance business, and you want to belong to the $5 million club to qualify for a trip to who knows where, the first spaceship going to the moon, or the first submarine going 20 leagues below the sea. And you got to sell $5 million worth of whole life insurance. And you only sold $494,995,000 worth of insurance. You're going to make sure to get that last 5,000 in, because you want to make the $5 million club, roundtable club. You want to be there. So if you feel, regardless of what you've accomplished, you still got plenty to go, you're going to pray to God to give you the assistance to get you where you could get, where you belong. So if you feel you're not where you are, and you appreciate what that means, you understand what the other people, your fellow Jew, where he's not at, you really relate to where he's not at. But if you can't relate to where he's not at because you feel you've arrived, even though you haven't arrived, so it's all almost, it borders on lip service, because you can't internalize the reality of what the other person doesn't have. Person goes to the doctor, if you don't take off 60 pounds, your diabetes, your blood pressure, your heart, your cholesterol, you're going to be a walking dead man. You're not going to live more than so many months. So you better get on a diet real quick. This person buys all the books and all the scales and everything else, reads up on nutrition, and he's committed. He realizes it's not so simple. His wife has to get a code, electronic code on the refrigerator and the cabinets. The guy can't get into the cabinets, but he knows he's going to die unless he takes off the weight, unless he has that level of assistance and all these fences and all these gadgets to keep him away from it. But you understand, your life is at stake. Do you want to live? You have a family, you have a this, you have a that. It's not simple. And even if he takes off the weight, and once he feels pretty much in a good place, what happens? He starts drifting back to where he was before he turns around. He's 20 pounds heavier than he was before. So the cycle goes over again. It's back and forth. What is it all? That's exactly what we're talking about. It's a life struggle. This man, it's a life struggle. And you have to always be in the up. You can't be in the down. You can't let yourself slip back. And that's exactly what baal tshuva is about. And if he doesn't allow himself to slip back, and even when he does slightly, he always recovers. That recovery is not so simple. It's like pushing a boulder up a mountain. Pushing a boulder up a mountain is not easy. But yet he succeeds. The level of his success is phenomenal. And that's what God values. Therefore, baal tshuva, his accomplishments are valued in God's eyes more than a tzaddik. But simultaneously, the tzaddik is always praying for the person he should become the baal tshuva. Elul is a Babylonian Persian word, but that's what we refer to the month. The preparatory month for Rosh Hashanah, which is Day of Judgment, where God evaluates everybody's record, and every aspect of the person's life can be determined on that day. Whether the person lives, dies, whether he's going to have a better life, a more difficult life, in every sense of the word, family-wise, community-wise, global-wise. God gives you a month. It's a month of preparation to prepare that you should be in the best place when the day of judgment comes. Now, if we just spoke about how difficult it is to overcome these challenges, especially when you're conditioned the whole year to behave a certain way and act a certain way, and perspective-wise, even though you may have the perspective, and what happens if you don't have the perspective, to be able to recognize that the other perspective is more correct than your perspective. How does it happen? You need divine assistance. Ani l'dodi v'dodi li. What is the method of Elul? If you show God even a slight degree of love to him, that you want to do his will, he's there for you all the way. There's an expression in the Medrash that if you make an opening the equivalent the size of the eye of a needle or the point of a needle, I will open an opening which is the equivalent of a banquet hall. You just have to take a slight degree of initiative. But if it's sincere and you really want to make the change, God is going to pull you out of the brink. And he's going to pull you up. You ever see these pictures, these miners that are stuck 3,000 feet below the earth, the surface in some coal mine in South America? And they dig the shaft and they have the cylinder and they send it down and the person fits into the cylinder almost like a straitjacket. And he comes up this narrow shaft, he's pulled up. If he wouldn't have that elevator or pump up the air down there to push him up, he's staying there forever. He's going to become asphyxiated and die. But because they want to save his life, they'll leave no stone unturned to bring him up. If you have an interest in making a change and you want to have a relationship with your beloved, God says, you don't even have to take an initiative more than the eye of an eagle. That's the degree, I will open the world for you. I will open it up like entry to a banquet hall. So that's the degree. That's how much God wants to assist his son. If a person has a son, he went wayward, and the son's behavior was beyond obnoxious and defiant, father's disgusted with him. All of a sudden, the son sends a message to his father, Dad, I'd like to come back. That's all he said, Dad, I'd like to come back. The father will if the father could bring him back, he'll turn the world over for that son. What did the son say? He said, if you were, Dad, I want to come back. The father will spend endless amounts of money, will make endless connections to people who could bring him back. But what did you show? Because the love the father has for his son, and the moment the father sees any ray of light that there's a chance he may come back, God says, is no more than the eye of a needle, the point of a pin. That's all I want to see. I'll turn the world over. I'll bring you right back. That's ani l'dodi li. If you show you to your beloved is me to you. That's what King Solomon says in Song of Songs. That's the reality of the relationship between God and the Jewish people. It's literally love that we can't even relate to what the degree of love is. Just read, Moshe Rabbeinu says to the Jewish people, you are God's children. Therefore, you're not permitted when a person dies, you're not permitted to lacerate your body, which was in the ancient times, the person was so consumed with his grief and pain, he would take a shard of pottery and he'd start tearing it away at his skin, lacerating himself, mutilating himself, because he couldn't contain the pain. And then he would start pulling the hair out of his head, because it was uncontainable pain. A Jew's not permitted to do this. Not permitted. Why? You God's people. Why is a person beside himself when he loses a beloved one? For one of two reasons. Either the person feels abandoned. If you understand you're God's children, as good as your father was, whatever your father could provide, whatever way your father loved you, if you understand what God loves, the way God loves the Jewish people, and what God would provide for the person, it far surpasses what a mortal parent can do. If you understand that, you're not abandoned. You don't feel abandoned. You're in a secure position. The whole world is still open for you. But you said, maybe you're considering a person who died. Who knows where he is? He can't enjoy life anymore. But if you would understand what the world to come is, that his soul is glowing and basking in something which is nothing comparable to it, you don't have to worry about the deceased. He's in a good place. You don't have to worry about it. So for both reasons, there's no reason to grieve to this degree. Of course, there's pain. You're a human being. But to be consumed where you become non-functional, understanding what your relation with God is, and understanding what the deceased, what he's worthy of, there's no reason to grieve to this degree. And that's a reality. And that goes in, that's the ani l'dodi v'dodi li. If the child shows a small degree of love for the father, the dodi li, God will say, I'll turn worlds for you, bring you back. It's a story. Rav Steinman passed away maybe 10 years ago. Some of the people Yadav met him. I was very close with him. He was leading Torah sage in the world. He lived in Israel. Originally came from Europe, White Russia, went to Israel in the 30s, and not the 30s, during the war years. And he himself was a man, one of a kind, not only even as a Torah sage, his level of wisdom was something. He saw things in a way where people who maybe surpassed him in IQ did not see it the way he saw it. And he saw with such clarity when he would share it with you, you understood there's no other way to go other than the way he presented it, the way you should go. This is a story. There was a family in Bnei Brak, which is where he lived, the community, very observant community. And one of the sons went off. Didn't observe Shabbos, didn't observe Kashrus, and he just didn't fit into the family profile. And the son said, I'm moving to the United States. He left Israel, came to America, and it went from bad to worse. He sends his father a message. He met a non-Jewish girl. He's going to marry her. This boy was raised as an observant Jew, went to yeshiva, education. When he walked out the door, he walked way beyond anybody could have thought he walked. And he writes his father, or he tells him that although I'm engaged, I'm going to marry her, but I know once I marry her, I will never have a relationship with you ever again because of what I'm doing, and I understand it. But it's something I want and something I'm going to do. But I'd like to come back to Bnei Brak for one Shabbos, spend my last Shabbos of my life with my family. Are you agreeable to it? That's what the son asked the father. So the father said, you could come back. We would want you to come back, even for one Shabbos, on one condition, that if you don't observe Shabbos, it's only out on the balcony, on the mirpeset. You want to smoke, you want to speak on your phone, on Shabbat, it's not in the house. You want to go with your head uncovered, on the mirpeset, out on the balcony. In the house, on Shabbat, no smoking, no radio, no telephone, and you have to dress accordingly. He agreed. Comes back, this is the last Shabbos of his life that he's going to be living as a Jew and having a relation with his family. And he comes and he keeps his word, and the parents don't say a word to him when he goes out, and he does whatever he wants outside the house on the balcony. So far, so good. The parents are paying tremendously because they know once the Shabbos is over, the son is going into the oblivion, and they're never going to have a relation with him again. And the son's going to destroy his life, marrying this non-Jewish woman. Okay. So his father says to him, Rabbi Steinman this afternoon is giving a class. Would you like to come to the class? And he knew Rav Steinman was, because when he was a child, he was exposed to him living in the community. So he says, if it's his last Shabbos living as a Jew, might as well go. So he goes with his father to Rabbi Steinman, and Rabbi Steinman says, Shabbat Shalom. acknowledges him, so on and so forth. Rabbi Steinman knew the story. And he speaks whatever it was Pirkei Avos, whatever class was, he gave a class. And when he saw Rabbi Steinman, he was very touched. Steinman didn't say a word to him other than Shabbat Shalom, nothing more than that. He gets back to the house, to his parents' apartment, and he says to his father, I'm not going back to America. I'm not marrying a not Jewish girl. I thought it over. I'm coming all the way back. So he says to his father says, what happened? I never said a word to you. I kept the agreement in the house. You observe on the balcony that, and you're going back. You attended, you came to her, you saw him. What touched you? What happened? He said, I'll tell you what touched me. This is when I was a child in elementary school. The teacher would take us to be examined by the rabbi. He would ask us questions on the subject matter we studied. And each child who he asked the question, if he gave the right answer, he gave him a candy afterwards. He'd pat him on the cheek and give him a candy. Everyone, and it comes my turn to ask me questions. I couldn't answer any of the questions. And as much as Rabbi Steinman tried to present it in a way that I should be able to answer, I wasn't able to answer the question. As much as I tried. So Rabbi Steinman said, for trying, you get 2 candies, not 1. That was the story with Rabbi Steinman. That was the interaction. When he went to the class, he recalled that sensitivity had to him that the others received 1, but he received 2 because he tried. That touched him. He's not going back. He's changing. He's going back. He's turning his life upside down. What it was, that was to walk the straight path. You understand what? It's a miracle. It's a miracle. You say, is that enough to do it? Some people are touched, some people are not touched. Certain people go to the Kotel, the Wailing Wall. They were never there before. They never experienced Judaism. They go there, all of a sudden, somehow they're touched. And they're touched in a way, creates a curiosity. They want to start pursuing, understanding what it's about. Another Jew, he says he has a stone of heart. His heart is like stone. He goes there. He says, this friend, what happened to you? I never realized you're such a emotional person. Never knew that you're so superstitious. What's all this about? You're such a cerebral person. This doesn't make sense. Doesn't have to make sense. You have to have a merit to be touched. He was touched. The other guy wasn't touched. Elul is a month that every Jew, ani l'dodi v'dodidi, you're in a position you could be touched. You just have to take a slight degree of initiative. You take that slight degree of initiative, you get into that cylinder going 100 miles an hour straight up. That's how quickly it goes. But you have to take initiative. And that's innate in the month of Elul. So the Persian word Elul, it's an allusion to the relationship between God and his children. The child just says, Dad, I want to come home. That's all. You don't have to say to them more than, Dad, I want to come home. The father will turn the world over to bring the kid home. But he doesn't say that. The father feels he's wasting his time with this child. That's all. That's how, relatively speaking, simple it is. It's not simple, but it is. Relative, if you understand and you've seen it, and you've seen it work in the past, that lies within it. Person goes and he goes to a barium chamber because he has what they call, he went below the water too fast. He has to be going to this decompression chamber. Person, you be in there for a certain amount of time, you come out, you'll be like a new person. Doesn't make sense. You just have to walk into the chamber. That's all you got to do. The machine itself does the rest. You just have to go walk in. Ani l'dodi, you're walking in. Once you walk in, then you're embraced. You're engulfed. Once you're engulfed, you start feeling the effect. All of a sudden, you start seeing the light. And the more you see the light, the more you're able to appreciate things that you never saw before. But now you're seeing it.